The next method I would like to define for the refurbished store class would be given a serial number. If that exists in the refurbished store, I would like to find out its corresponding products. Otherwise, if the supply serial number does not exist in the store, we're going to return null for the product objects. Let me give you some example quickly before I start programming. So this is the layout that we discussed in the earlier video. So this will be after inserting the 3 entries into the refurbished store, RS, and we got NOE, number of entries will be 3, and also the fixed size array, rs.entries, actually got 2 null slots, whereas from left to right, we got 3 references stored into the array, right? That's something we spoke about. Let's say, for example, if I give you the serial number, let's say C9FN, C9FZN, and etc. If I give you this particular serial number, of course, it does exist in the store. In that case, what I want to return is the reference to this product objects. If I give you this particular serial number, in that case, I want to return the reference to this particular objects. And if I give you a serial number that does not exist in the store, is neither this, nor this. In that case, I want to return null as the result. Okay, so that's kind of the layout for the method. That's the input-output behavior. Let's see how we can do that. Let's now go back to the model package and let's click on refurbish store. And let me just go back, go all the way to the end, right after the last overloaded version for the entry. Okay, let me maximize it. Let's program that. Okay, so the idea would be, let's now talk about the algorithm, the steps over here. Let's say if I give you some valid serial number, so I should really know which index is it actually pointing to by the entries array. In this case, this serial number corresponds to index 1, because from index 1 of the entries array is pointing to this particular entry objects. From there, the corresponding products will be the one I want to return. Similarly, if I give you this serial number, and in that case, I want to know which index of the entries array it would be. In that case, it would be index 0. If I, if I give you some serial number that does not exist in the refurbished store, in that case, I will simply give you -1 as the index, meaning that it does not exist in the store. So I should really return null specifically. Okay. Let's now see how we can program this. So the idea about indexing is actually very important. Of course, if you have your own solution for tackling this problem, you can feel free to experiment as well. Okay, so I'm going to define the API, the header for the method first. Public is going to be an accessor method. It will return the reference of some products objects. And then let's call it get products, given some serial number. So this will be the input, the only input we'll take. So string serial number over here, SN. Okay, let's see what we can do. So initially, I would simply, for now, just make sure everything compiles. Currently, it does not compile because it's supposed to return a product, but it does not return anything. For now, I would just say return null, just for now. Okay, so at least it will compile. I want to initialize a variable called index over here. I want to assign that to be -1. And then I'm going to run a loop. And the loop is actually going to go over the entries array over here, index by index, all the way until NOE -1. Because if I go for NOE, which will be 3, and also NOE +1, and etc., all the remaining slots after starting from NOE, they are simply just null because they have not been filled in yet. So it's not really necessary to look at them. In fact, if you look into them, you might easily run into null pointer exception if you are not cautious enough. That's something I will show you as well. But the idea would be, I want to go from left to right all the way until NOE -1 was strictly less than NOE. And then I want to see which one, let's see, some iteration might be able to reassign the index value from -1 into its index if, for example, the serial number matches. So that's the idea. Let's give it a try. Okay, so I would say initially index will just be -1. So here I can make some notes over here. Expected to be reassigned to a valid index if the serial number exists. in the store. Okay, a little bit long, but you can split it into multi-line if you wish, but I'll just keep it as a single line. So I'm gonna write a loop. I'm gonna say for I, integer I, initialized to be 0, I, strictly less than this dot NOE, right? Rather than this dot entries dot length, I will change that to be this dot entries dot length later, and show you that you can easily write into null pointer exception. Okay, I'll get there. And then I++. Okay, so what should I do? So now in each iteration, I'm gonna try to see if I try to say, for example, since the context object that in our JUnit test will be RS, right? So this entries, and then that'll be referring to the beginning of this array. If I give some particular index value I could be 0, can be 1, can be 2 in this case. And then I'm going to see if that refers to this particular entry object, how can I retrieve its serial number for me to compare against? I can say get serial number, right? So let me show you one way to do it. Let me do a little bit more some intermediate lines to show you. So I can say entry E is assigned to this dot entries array and go to index I, like that. Okay, so now I can, for every iteration, I'm basically creating some alias like this. For example, for the first iteration, E will be pointing to wherever index 0 is pointing to. For iteration number 2, E will be pointing to wherever index 1 is pointing to, and etc. Right? E is just a local variable for aliasing. Right? You can see aliasing just happens so often whenever you got the same objects whose address is stored in multiple places. Okay, and then I'm going to say if e.get serial number dot equals, right? Remember, to compare a string value, you don't want to say equal for the reason I explained earlier in part 1. You can revisit that. If that's the same as the serial number we're looking for, in that case, I'm going to reassign the index value to be that particular index. For example, let's say if we are currently looking at, we are currently in iteration number 2, looking at index 1. If its serial number matches Sn, in that case, then I will reassign the index from -1 into 1. That's something I will do, right? Okay, in that case, I would say index is reassigned to I. That's what I will do. Okay, and then so now we can do some case analysis, right? You can say if I remains to be -1, meaning that it's actually strictly less than 0. In that case, I would know there's nothing for me to return because the serial number actually does not exist, meaning that I never got a chance to make this true and get index reassigned. In that case, I know that I will simply have to return null. Okay, sorry, not I. Notice that for the for loop, if I declare it this way, I is only visible within the for loop. So what I really meant to say is the index. Okay. Okay, if index is strictly less than 0, I know that I should really return null. Okay, that's one way to do. And then otherwise, I'm going to return this dot entries at position index, right? I don't need this original return null. I don't need that. Okay, like that. This dot entries. Oh, beg your pardon. And then we're actually supposed to get a product, right? So once we get an entry over here, let's say, for example, if this is the corresponding entry with the matching serial number. In that case, how do we get its corresponding products? We got to go one more level using the dot notation. That's something I forgot. Okay, so once we get, so this is the context object for refurbished store. This dot entries is an entry array. Go to a particular valid index, it will give you an entry. So now we can say further, get products. Okay, so that will make it compile. Right, so we spoke about the dot notation many times in the earlier video. You should really revisit them if you got any doubts. All right, so that will be the implementation. Okay, let's now write some test cases. So what I would do is I'm going to go under test refurbished store. We're still testing the same class, so there's no need to create a new test class. If I go there, and then I can definitely reuse quite a bit from the earlier test. So let me suggest some copy and pasting, shall we? Double click on this. So starting from at test, and we're going to copy test refurbished store 1. We want to go all the way to here. all the way until we actually add entry 3. We will also delete the intermediate assertions because they have done already in one test method. We don't need to repeat them in another test method. Okay, so up to here. You can say copy. All right, and then let's now go outside the first test method, and let's now paste. All right, once I say paste, hit enter right away and put a closing brackets. Otherwise, you'll get syntax error. Okay, like that. And what I want to do is I want to first of all delete all the intermediate assertions. Of course, I also need to rename the method to be number 2 rather than number 1. All right. Let me delete these assert true. Right, they are only applicable for the previous test, not for the current one. And also, I'm going to delete all the assertions between after add entry E1. And I want to also delete all the assertions after add entry 2. Right. So now we got very simple lines over here. Add entry number 1, add entry number 2, and also add entry number 3. And now we can write some new assertions for this test specifically. And the one I want to write is using the 3 serial number to actually do some assertion. For example, you can see if I give the serial number that matches this one here, then the return product should be the same as P1. Agree? If I give the serial number, this one that will matches the entry here, and the return product should be with the same address as P2. And if I give the serial number over here, the return products should have the corresponding model and also the corresponding original price. That's something I can check, right? Okay, so let's now do those. And then I can also pass some invalid serial number, which does not exist in the refurbished store. I'll do that as well. Let's now do the valid ones first. So I can say assert true over here. I'll say rs dot get products. Okay, to really make sure you don't have any typo. So what I would suggest is I'm going to put, so entry number 1 actually got this particular serial number. So I would suggest we copy that. Okay, and get products over here like that. So once you get a product, it's going to return some product reference, right? As I said, that should be the same as P1. Okay, so this part over here has exactly this particular visualization, which I explained earlier. So now if I give this particular serial number, the return product objects should have the same reference as P1, right? P1 because P1 stores its reference, right? Okay, so let's now, so that's good. That's the first one, and let's now launch the test very quickly. So if I say launch, so now we got 2 test cases and both of them actually pass. Okay, so far so good. Let's try similarly, let's for the second one, right? So now I'm going to give the serial number that will matches the middle entry over here, okay? The second entry. Then I'll do something very similar. I'll say assert true over here, and then I'll say rs.get products over here. Okay, put a string literal quote, and entry number 2 got this particular serial number. Let me copy that just to avoid typo, and then I'll paste it over here. And that one should be alias to P2, right? P2 should have the same address as the address of the return objects over here, right? And if I say relaunch the test, I still get a green bar. Okay, what about the third one? The third one, I'm going to actually do the third serial number. However, you can see for the pink object over here, as we said in the earlier video, both the entry objects and the product object, they are simply anonymous because we create those objects internally inside the called add entry method. So that's why we cannot refer to them directly. But what we can check is we can check the return products actually got the correct iPad Pro 10.5 and also original price. That's what we can check. Let's now do it. Okay, so let me now just go back here, and then I would say assert true over here, rs.get products over here, and the serial number I want to get is this one here. Okay, copy that like here, and then so this is the products, right? Once I get the products over here, I can now get the various attributes. I can get a model, I can get a finish, I can get a storage, and etc. Right? Let's try to get all of them to make sure all the attribute values over here will actually match, even though we don't really know what the exact address it is. That should be good enough, right? Okay, so let's say there's a product, and then we can say get model over here and dot equals. And the model should be iPad Pro 10.5, right? And for the dot notation, I already explained that in the earlier video, so hopefully you're fine. iPad Pro 10.5 over here, right? That's the first one. Let me copy this line, okay? And rather than get model, we can say get finish. Okay, and then so get finish will remain its default value, so that should be null, right? Just to remind you, okay? So that should be equal to null, and also copy the line again. And the next one to check would be let's say get storage, and that should be equal to 0. Also the default value. We'll see how to set them appropriately in a moment. Okay, and the next one, right after get storage, we can get cellular connectivity, right? Get cellular has cellular connectivity. That's the accessor name, right? So that should be equal to false, right? The default value. Okay, and then after cellular connectivity, we should get the original price. And for the original price, we should really use the assert equals with tolerance. Assert equals, so that should be 929.00, right? You can see that's the value over here. And then don't forget to put 0.1 as the tolerance. Oh, I forgot to say get products and then get original price, of course. Okay, let me copy this line, and then the final one to verify. We got 6 attributes verified already, right? That'll be the discount value, default value 0.0. So rather than get original price, we're gonna say discount value. Okay. Right, so we got all the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 attributes verified. Let's now make sure they will pass. All right, everything is good. I would like to do one more set of assertions just to show you how you can set the values, set the default value to be the appropriate ones. For example, let's see how can we modify the attribute value for this particular product, right? With a serial number 7YN4P and etc. Right? Somehow we want to get a reference to this particular products. How many ways are there for us to get into this product? We're talking about how many names, right? So for this particular product, you can see how many incoming arrows are there, right? At least one of them is through this path over here. If we go through index 2 of the entries array, and then we try to go for get products, we can get this product object. That's one way. Okay. The second way is if we simply say get products, call that accessor method, that will also give us some pointer to the product. So there are at least 2 ways. I want both ways are valid names for this particular object. So using either name to really do some changes by Mutator call, they will have the same effects. So that's something I would like to emphasize. Let's see how we can do that. Okay. So to do that, I can say, let me show you one example. Let's say rs.getProducts. Actually, you know what? Let me do some copy and paste just to save your time. rs.getProducts over here, right? If I say that, it's guaranteed to give me back this particular object. It's a reference for that object to be more precise. So I want to say .getProducts, and then I can say set finish, right? Rather than null, I want it to be silver. Okay, you can see currently it is null, but I want it to be silver. Okay, and then let's do something similar. And then for this product here, I can say set storage. Let's say 256, right? So that's 256 gigabytes. And let me show you some alternative way. There are other ways to for naming this object over here, right? Again, for this particular object over here, what's the alternative way? I can say rs.entries and then position 2. That will refer to this entry, and then you can say get products. That's the way to do it. Okay, and I can also try the following. I can say product over here, P3. is assigned to, let's say, rs.get entries. You can either use get entries or get private entries array. Either way will be okay, right? As I illustrated in the earlier video. Let me say get entries. And then I can go to index 2. So this will give me the corresponding entry, right? And then, so this up to here is going to give to me the entry pointed by index 2, right? And then I want to get the corresponding products of that. Get products, okay? And then I'm saving its reference into P3. So what's the consequence of that? The consequence is I'm going to let P3 is points to exactly this object over here, right? Once I refer to this object here, I can store its reference to as many variables as I like. In this case, I'll let P3 store its reference, okay? So now for P3, after I get that, I can say P3.set cellular connectivity, and then I can say false. Just remain to be false. And then I can say P3.set discount value over here, so that'll be 270, let's say. All right, so after this, we can do one more thing. Okay, so you can see for this particular products with the serial number 7YN, 4P, and etc. So now after these mutator calls, I should have set the finish to be silver and also storage to be 256, right? That's and also the discount value into 270.00. That's what I have done. Let's now copy this fragment over here, and then let's paste the assertions over here. Let's now make the corresponding change. The finish should now, I say dot equals, so it should be silver. Okay, and also the storage should be 256. 256. The connectivity remains to be false, and also for the discount value over here, it should be 270, right? So that should be 270. Okay, and then let's now rerun all the test cases. Now I got a green bar. Okay, so for this method for get product is rather straightforward. So I wouldn't do any detailed tracing together with you on the iPad, but instead I kind of show you the high level idea of how to manipulate the object structure that we built from the previous JUnit test. I hope that's actually sufficient. And this is really the very useful diagram. You should really practice drawing yourself. And then if you were given any new method to implement for your later laboratory exercises or maybe programming tests where you have no clue, thinking in terms of the high level diagram is really the way to go.